It begins at dawn, when the world is still holding its breath. The light is soft, hesitant, like a prayer whispered by the horizon. The air carries that ancient scent of dew and possibility. In this silence, something calls, not to the ears, but to the heart. A quiet invitation to listen, to remember, to awaken. For centuries, humanity has looked to the heavens for healing, believing that the divine resides far above. But the old ones, those who walked before time was measured, knew a different truth. They believed that the essence of healing flowed not from the sky, but from the earth, through water, light, and intention. They believed that the cure for every ailment was hidden in the rhythm of nature itself. And among their secrets was one that endured the rise and fall of empires, a ritual so simple, yet so profound, it was passed through generations only in whispers. They called it the morning drink of life, a sacred blend taken at sunrise, said to calm the storms within the body, to lower what they once called the inner fire of pressure. Today, we name it high blood pressure, but to them, it was something more, a sign of disconnection between the body and the breath of the world. Imagine an elder by the riverbank, dipping her hands into the cool stream as the first light of morning kisses the surface. She gathers the water not with haste, but with reverence. She looks upon it as something living, aware. She speaks softly to it, words of gratitude, love, and release. For she knows that water listens, it remembers. Modern science has only begun to trace what ancient wisdom already understood, that molecules respond to intention, that water structures itself in harmony with vibration, that the human body, made mostly of this sacred element, echoes the songs it receives. When she drinks, she is not merely hydrating her body, she is aligning her being with the memory of creation itself. In the West, they named it hypertension, a clinical term, detached and sterile. But in the East, it was known as the rising wind. The Taoist masters believed that when the heart's energy could no longer flow freely, when anger or fear were held too long within, the inner winds would surge upward, creating pressure upon the sacred temple of the skull. And so, to restore peace, they turned to water, to that which flows, adapts, and surrenders without losing itself. The elder's ritual was more than medicine. It was communion. Before the first sip, she would close her eyes and breathe deeply. She would imagine her heart slowing, her veins softening like morning rivers, her spirit dissolving into the vastness of dawn. In this stillness, something miraculous would occur. Her pulse would calm, her thoughts would quiet, and the body would remember how to heal. The truth hidden beneath this ritual is one modern science is only now beginning to glimpse, that the body is not separate from thought, nor is thought separate from faith. Every cell listens, every molecule feels, and every morning when the light returns, the body asks again for harmony, for remembrance, for connection to the source. When you wake, the world outside is still forming itself anew. The first moments of morning are sacred because they mirror the act of creation itself. Just as the universe expands from darkness into light, so too does the human body awaken from sleep into awareness. This is the moment when your heart, your mind, and the field around you are most open to transformation. To drink with intention at this hour is to participate in a cosmic rhythm older than memory. The ancients believed that water taken in the morning carried the signature of renewal. It washed not only the tongue but the spirit. They believed that one could speak to the water, that one could teach it to heal. They would whisper 3 truths before drinking: gratitude, release, and alignment. Gratitude for the day that has been given, release of all that no longer serves, alignment with the flow of divine energy that sustains all life. To them, this was not superstition, it was sacred science. For what we think, we become. What we bless, we transform. What we love, we heal. High blood pressure, they said, was the language of a heart unheard. It was not the enemy, it was the messenger. The sign that somewhere within, the flow had been obstructed by worry, resentment, or fear. The heart, unable to release, pushed harder, like a river meeting a dam. And so, The morning ritual became the gentle dismantling of that dam, not through medicine alone, but through communion. The elder would mix the water with a touch of lemon, the fruit of purification. To the ancient healers, the lemon represented sunlight condensed into form. Its taste was sharp, awakening, cleansing. Its essence, when joined with water, was said to cut through the old energies, clearing the pathways where stagnant emotions had lingered. She would add a pinch of natural salt, not the kind stripped and refined by industry, but the living salt of the earth, filled with trace minerals born from oceans that predated humankind. Salt, they believed, carried memory, the memory of the primordial sea from which all life emerged. Ingesting it was an act of remembrance, calling the body back to its original blueprint. And when these elements met, water, lemon, and salt, the transformation began. A trinity of earth, light, and life. The elder would close her eyes once more and bless the cup, not in ritualistic dogma, but in sincere gratitude. She would say softly, "May this water remember the peace of the river, the clarity of the sun, and the strength of the sea." Then she would drink. Within her the world would slow, her breath would deepen, her pulse would soften like waves retreating from the shore. Science would describe this as parasympathetic activation, the calming of the nervous system. But the ancients described it as the return of the soul to the heart. In that stillness, healing was not an event. It was a remembrance. The modern world has forgotten the sanctity of such moments. We rush through mornings with noise, caffeine, and glowing screens. We rise not to meet the day, but to fight it. Our hearts race before our feet even touch the ground. The sacred has been replaced by the mechanical, the intuitive replaced by the artificial. And yet, even now, the ancient call persists, faint but unwavering. Somewhere deep within, your cells still remember the rhythm of sunrise. They remember the taste of pure water and the calm of a grateful breath. They long to return to the simplicity of alignment. Every sip of morning water can be a doorway, if you allow it. You do not need temples or scriptures, only presence. The act of drinking becomes a meditation, the liquid a messenger between your inner and outer worlds. Consider this: the heart beats approximately 100,000 times a day. Each beat is a wave of light and pressure traveling through your being. When your emotions become heavy, when your thoughts become turbulent, these waves begin to collide within you. The ancients believed this collision is what causes pressure to rise, not merely in the vessels, but in the spirit. They called it the fire of the blood. To calm it, they didn't fight it. They surrendered. They cooled it with silence, water, and faith. They taught that gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a frequency. When you wake in gratitude, your cells vibrate differently. Your water becomes coherent. Your energy field stabilizes. Your blood, once turbulent, begins to flow with ease. There is a story told in forgotten monasteries of monks who healed not with herbs but with sound. Every morning before they drank, they would chant to the water. Their voices would resonate through the cup, infusing the liquid with intention. They believed that these vibrations harmonized the crystalline structures within the water, making it medicine. Modern science, in its cautious curiosity, has begun to explore something eerily similar: the effects of frequency on matter. Experiments have shown that sound can alter molecular formation, that vibration can shape the unseen. Perhaps the monks understood something we are only rediscovering, that the voice of faith carries the same power as the instruments of science. To drink mindfully in the morning is to merge both worlds, the mystical and the physical. Each swallow becomes a prayer, each drop a messenger. The elder once said, "Water heals when the soul is present." She meant that no medicine, no ritual, no prayer works without awareness. The body listens to consciousness. When you say to your water, "You will bring peace to my heart," you are not commanding an object, you are commanding yourself. You are reminding the divine within your cells that it was made to flow in harmony. This is why the ritual works, not as superstition but as alignment. Those who practiced it noticed changes not only in their pressure, but in their perception. The world seemed softer, time slower, breath deeper. Their anger lost its edge. Their fears became transparent like mist over the morning lake. They began to live in rhythm with the pulse of life again. The elder would often tell her students, "Do not chase healing, invite it." She meant that true healing cannot be forced, only allowed. Just as the river finds its way to the sea without struggle, so too does the heart find peace when we stop resisting its current. And so each morning the ritual continues, a sacred drink taken in silence, with love and awareness. "Drink this in the morning," they said, and say goodbye to high blood pressure. But what they truly meant was something deeper. Drink this and remember who you are, a being of water, light, and infinite flow. The modern mind may dismiss this as myth. But those who have tried, who have approached this act not with skepticism but with sincerity, have felt the shift, subtle at first, then undeniable. The body begins to obey the calmness of the heart. The pulse begins to follow the rhythm of breath. The pressure fades, not by force, but by grace. For the body does not need domination. It needs remembrance. And every morning, when the cup touches your lips and the sunlight catches the surface, you participate in something ancient and eternal. The world turns once more toward the light. The rivers within you awaken. The heart whispers flow. That is where the healing begins. In a hidden valley where mist moves like breath and mountains stand as witnesses of eternity, there lies an old monastery. Its walls, carved by time, bear inscriptions not of conquest but of communion. Inside, the monks never hurried, never raised their voices, for they believed that silence was the highest frequency of healing. They called their art the science of flow, and it began with a single truth written above the entrance in fading script. To master the water within, one must first listen to the silence without. These were the keepers of forgotten medicine. They did not measure life with instruments, but with presence. To them, high blood pressure was never a disease. It was a distortion, a loss of rhythm between the heart and the cosmos. They spoke of it as the tightening of life's current, a sign that the soul had turned away from the natural order of expansion and surrender. In their records, written in ink made from plants and ashes, there are diagrams of rivers, clouds, and veins, drawn side by side. Beneath them one phrase repeats, "As the river flows to the sea, so must the heart flow to peace." In their dawn ritual, the monks used a vessel called the Cup of Remembrance. It was not gold or silver, but simple clay, unglazed, porous. They said that only a humble vessel could hold divine energy. Each morning, they would pour clear spring water into the cup, then place it beneath a shaft of sunlight that entered through the temple's eastern window. The light would dance upon the surface, breaking into colors unseen by ordinary eyes. The monks would chant in a low hum, each note chosen not by melody but by vibration. They believed every organ resonated with a frequency, and that chanting awakened its original tone. As they drank, they visualized the water flowing through their veins like sunlight through rivers, dissolving the inner winds that created tension. And indeed, after each ritual, their pulses steadied, their breath slowed, their eyes glowed with peace. They lived long, calm lives, untouched by the turmoil of the outer world. It would take centuries for modern researchers to rediscover fragments of what they practiced, that water changes its structure under light, that sound affects molecular coherence, that heart rhythm reflects emotional states. Yet the monks needed no instruments to know this. Their faith was their science. One scroll speaks of the three harmonies: water, light, and word. Water is the carrier. It says, light is the activator and word is the programmer. Together they form the trinity of creation. Water absorbs, light awakens, and word gives direction. When one drinks with awareness of these three, one communes with the architecture of life itself. But somewhere along the path of civilization, this sacred knowledge was hidden, even forbidden. The age of reason, with its laboratories and equations, silenced the voice of mystery. Healing became mechanical. The body was no longer seen as a temple, but as a machine, a collection of parts rather than a flowing system of consciousness. Doctors began to measure pressure, but forgot to measure peace. Yet the ancients knew that the true regulator of blood was not the heart alone, but the harmony between breath, emotion, and the unseen field surrounding every living being. They saw the pulse as the signature of the soul, a wave traveling through the ocean of flesh, guided by what they called the inner sun. When that sun dimmed under fear, guilt, or disconnection, the waves grew erratic and the body responded with tension. The monks healed by rekindling that sun. They used breath as a key. Before drinking, they would inhale slowly, counting 7 heartbeats, and exhale the same, whispering the word Shanti, peace. This, they said, opened the gates of the heart. Only then could the water enter as medicine. To drink without peace was to invite chaos into the bloodstream. One manuscript describes an experiment. A novice monk, burdened with anger, drank from the sacred cup without stilling his thoughts. His pulse quickened, his chest tightened, his face flushed. The elder placed his hand upon the novice's heart and said, "You did not drink the water. You drank your fire." And then, guiding him to the window, he instructed, "Breathe until the mountain breathes with you." The novice followed, his breath slowing, his mind softening. When he drank again, tears filled his eyes. His pulse settled. "Now," said the elder, "you have drunk the river." Science would later call this the shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic state. But to them, it was the return from noise to harmony. Even the herbs they added to their drink had meaning beyond chemistry. A slice of lemon symbolized illumination, its yellow echoing the sun's awakening. Salt represented the memory of the beginning, the mineral code of creation. A sprig of mint was sometimes placed atop the cup, for mint was considered the breath of the earth, cooling the fires of emotion. These were not random ingredients, but symbols woven into the tapestry of balance. It was said that the abbot himself cured a visiting noble suffering from the fire of the blood. The man had traveled far, plagued by headaches and a pounding heart. The monks did not give him medicine, they gave him time. For 7 mornings he sat by the spring at sunrise, holding the clay cup, repeating the sacred breath, whispering words of gratitude into the water. On the 8th day, the noble wept, for he felt something he had not felt in years, stillness. His pulse was calm, his face serene. He asked how this was possible. The abbot smiled and replied, "You healed not your blood, but your remembering." This line, preserved in the monastery's codex, would echo through centuries of hidden teachings. Healing, they taught, is not adding something new, but removing what blocks the flow of what already is. Later, travelers from Persia and Egypt would visit the monastery, exchanging knowledge with the monks. They spoke of similar rituals, of Sufi mystics who sang to their water before dawn, believing it carried divine intelligence, and of Egyptian healers who stored water in glass under moonlight to absorb celestial energy. Each tradition, though distant in geography, shared a common language: water as consciousness, light as life, and intention as command. The Bible, too, carries whispers of this wisdom. "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters," it says, the ancient metaphor for separation between spirit and form. The waters above and waters below were not oceans, but energies, the divine frequencies mirrored in human blood. When we are at peace, they flow in unison. When we are anxious, they conflict, creating internal storms. The Kabbalists took this further, mapping the tree of life as a river descending from infinity. They believed the human heart was the basin where divine light condenses into form. When blocked by fear or sin, this light turns heavy, manifesting as disease. Their remedy? Water blessed with sacred letters, each vibration meant to restore flow to the spiritual current within the body. Even Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, hinted at this forgotten bridge between faith and physiology when he wrote that natural forces within us are the true healers of disease. But what modern medicine overlooked is that these natural forces respond to consciousness. In one text preserved in the monastery, a phrase repeats like a mantra: "Where attention flows, energy follows. Where energy flows, healing begins." The monks saw attention as sacred currency. When you bring your awareness to your heart, you are paying homage to the temple within. When you bring it to your water, you are consecrating it. Centuries passed and the world forgot these truths. The industrial age replaced silence with noise, presence with haste. Humans began to wake under alarm clocks instead of sunlight, to drink coffee before gratitude, to rush into battle with their own schedules. The pulse of the planet accelerated, and with it, the pulse of the human race. But the records of the old monastery remain, waiting in quiet archives, whispering to those who still listen. And now, science, humbly, cautiously, begins to validate what those monks once knew by heart. Dr. Masaru Emoto photographed water crystals exposed to words, music, and emotion. The results were astonishing. Words of love created symmetry, words of hatred created chaos. Though controversial to skeptics, his experiments echoed the monastery's teaching. Water is the mirror of consciousness. Other researchers, using heart rate variability and electromagnetic field sensors, found that positive emotion can change blood coherence, reducing physical pressure. Perhaps we are finally beginning to bridge the chasm between faith and fact. When the monks spoke of the inner pressure, they meant not only the flow of blood but the flow of thought. They observed that anger tightened the vessels, fear shortened the breath, and gratitude expanded them both. The rhythm of the heart was the rhythm of the soul's song. A verse found in their oldest scroll reads, "When the mind bows to the heart, the blood bows to peace." In this lies the secret of the morning drink. Not merely lemon, salt, and water, but consciousness. When you drink with reverence, you instruct the molecules within to remember harmony. When you drink in haste, you reinforce chaos. The ancients didn't separate spirituality from biology. They saw the body as a living scripture written in water, light, and memory. And in every heartbeat, they heard the echo of creation, the same pulse that moves through stars and oceans. In truth, healing high blood pressure was never about lowering numbers. It was about raising awareness. It was about teaching the heart to breathe again, teaching the blood to sing in tune with life. The abbot wrote in his final teaching, "The greatest pressure is the weight of unspoken love." Perhaps this is why the ritual began with gratitude, for gratitude releases the heart from silence. When the heart is free, the blood flows as it was meant to, not as a burden, but as a blessing. So when you hold your cup in the morning, you hold more than water. You hold memory, sunlight, sound. You hold the forgotten language of healing that once united priest and physician, mystic and scientist, spirit and matter. The world is rediscovering what was never lost. The ritual is simple, but the act is divine. Drink this in the morning, not as a cure, but as a communion. For when water touches your lips with intention, the universe listens. It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, a shift within the rhythm of one's being. You may not notice it at first. The morning ritual seems so simple, almost too gentle to be powerful. Yet within a few days, something in you starts to change. The pulse that once raced beneath your fingertips softens. The breath becomes deeper, more spacious. You begin to sense a subtle order returning, not imposed by will but born from surrender. The ancients called this moment the turning of the waters. They believed that healing was not a sudden miracle, but a gradual harmonization, like a river clearing itself after a storm. The pressure that once swelled within the body, physical, emotional, spiritual, begins to release, dissolving into the great current of peace that underlies all existence. The transformation is not merely biological, it is sacred. For when the blood learns to flow again, so too does life itself. The first transformation is physical. The cells, long deprived of true rest, begin to remember their original rhythm. The water you drink in the morning, blessed with light, with lemon sunfire, with salt's memory, enters your body like a messenger. It speaks to your tissues in a language older than words. It carries vibration. It carries coherence. Every drop that passes through your veins tells your cells the same truth: you are safe. And safety, in the ancient language of biology, is permission to heal. The heart, no longer under siege by the storms of thought, beats with quiet confidence. Its electrical field expands, creating harmony throughout the nervous system. The arteries relax. The tension in the vessel walls softens. Science would call this vasodilation, the widening of pathways for flow. The monks would call it grace returning to the temple. And this grace spreads through blood, through breath, through every fiber of being. You feel it as warmth in the hands, a calm in the chest, a stillness behind the eyes. The storms subside. The river finds its natural course again. But transformation never ends with the body. It deepens. It enters the realm of the mind. For what is pressure, if not resistance to what is? What is tension, if not the refusal to flow? The mind that clings, that resists, that fears, becomes the dam within. It tightens the heart, hardens the breath, quickens the pulse. The ancients understood this intimately. They saw thought as current, a moving force that either nourishes or disturbs. A single fear repeated often enough could create waves within the body's waters, each one colliding with the next, creating turbulence. Over time, this turbulence becomes habit, and habit becomes disease. So they taught stillness, not as an escape, but as medicine. To think less is not to become empty, it is to become whole. For in silence the currents align again. Each morning, after the ritual drink, the monks would sit in stillness. They did not chase enlightenment, they awaited remembrance. The heart, they believed, was a compass that could reorient the entire being, but only if it was heard. And so, they listened. What they discovered within that silence was astonishing. When the mind grew still, the pulse of the earth could be felt within. The beat of the heart and the rhythm of nature were not two, they were one. The body was not in the world was in the body. As this awareness dawned, the transformation deepened. The monks described 3 stages of transformation, corresponding to 3 rivers within man: the river of flesh, the river of thought, and the river of light. The first, the river of flesh, carried the blood, the tangible current of life. When obstructed, illness appeared. When purified, vitality returned. The second, the river of thought, carried emotion and intention. When disturbed by fear, anger, or grief, it disrupted the flow of the first. But when guided by faith and love, it aligned them both. The third, the river of light, was the unseen current, the spiritual energy connecting each being to the source. It did not flow in veins, but in vibration. And when the first 2 rivers were balanced, this third one began to shimmer through, bringing illumination, the awareness that the healer and the healed are one. Thus the act of drinking became more than ritual. It became integration. Each sip harmonized the 3 rivers. The physical calmed, the emotional settled, the spiritual awakened. One monk described it as the day when my blood began to listen. He wrote of how his pulse once throbbed with restlessness. His thoughts scattered like leaves in wind. But after months of morning ritual, his heart beat like a drum of peace. The water within me remembered the river it came from, he said, and I remembered who I was before the noise. Transformation also carries a paradox. It is both surrender and creation. You are not forcing your body to change. You are allowing it to return. Healing is less about doing and more about remembering. The body has never forgotten how to heal. It only forgets how to listen. When gratitude enters the bloodstream, it changes everything. Modern researchers have found that emotion alters molecular function, yet the monks knew this long ago. Gratitude softens the chemistry of tension. It releases oxytocin, expands vessels, reduces cortisol. But they would say simply, gratitude is liquid light. It flows where resistance once lived. The moment you begin to give thanks for the water, for the breath, for the light, your entire being reorganizes around peace. You can almost feel it. The tightening loosens, the heaviness lifts, the blood hums softly beneath your skin. It is as if the universe inside you exhales. Transformation also reaches the unseen architecture of the spirit. For high pressure was never only in the blood, it was in the soul's attempt to contain more light than it was allowing itself to release. The monks taught that the body is a vessel. Divine energy flows through it like a river through stone. When we hold resentment, we narrow the channel. When we forgive, the river widens. When we love, the river becomes infinite. And so in forgiveness, even the blood heals. The act of forgiving, of letting go, is one of the most powerful regulators of internal pressure. It releases trapped frequencies, unburdens the heart, and clears the electromagnetic field surrounding the body. Science may call it stress reduction, but the ancients called it purification. Each morning, as you drink your sacred cup, you are not just hydrating, you are forgiving. You are releasing what no longer belongs to you, the old narratives, the old pain, the self-judgments that once tightened your pulse. And with each act of release, the flow deepens. One could say that healing is a return to the law of water. Flow, adapt, surrender, purify, reflect. The sages observed that water, when unopposed, shapes even the hardest stone. Not through force, but through patience. Likewise, the body heals not through battle, but through flow. If one listens closely, one can hear the echo of this truth in every heartbeat, the sound of life itself repeating flow, flow, flow. There is a beauty in realizing that the medicine was never outside. The lemon, the salt, the sunlight, the chant, all of them are mirrors, reflections of the divine processes already within you. The real alchemy is consciousness, the choice to awaken. As transformation unfolds, you begin to sense that even your perception of reality changes. The colors of morning seem deeper, the air lighter, the silence alive. You feel less like you're walking through the world and more like you're being carried by it. You stop fighting time, you start trusting flow, and that trust, that return to natural rhythm, is what truly lowers the internal storms. The blood follows the soul. When the soul relaxes, the pressure drops. The elders used to say, "The heart does not want to be controlled, it wants to be understood." Understanding begins when we listen without judgment. The next time you feel your pulse racing, instead of resisting, close your eyes and whisper, "I hear you." Then drink slowly, breathe deeply, and imagine your heart smiling. This simple act transforms panic into prayer. Transformation is not only about healing disease, it is about remembering the divine intelligence within the body. The same intelligence that grows trees, that moves oceans, that births galaxies, moves through your veins at this very moment. You are not separate from creation, you are its continuation. When this truth is felt, not merely known, the transformation becomes irreversible. You begin to live differently. You wake with reverence. You eat with gratitude. You speak with softness. You rest with faith. The small irritations that once raised your blood now dissolve like salt in sunlight. Even others begin to notice. They say your presence feels calmer, your eyes clearer, your energy lighter. What they feel is the resonance of coherence, the natural field of peace that emerges when body, mind, and spirit are in harmony. It is contagious. Your peace becomes a silent healer to those around you. For this is the higher truth of transformation. Healing is not personal, it is universal. When one heart finds its rhythm, the world beats more peacefully. And perhaps this is why the ancient masters guarded the ritual so dearly. Not because it was complicated, but because it was sacred. Its power lay not in ingredients, but in awareness. The transformation completes its circle when you realize that the morning drink is not a ritual to perform, but a mirror to remember. You are the water, you are the light, you are the prayer. And when you drink in the morning, you are not just saying goodbye to high blood pressure. You are saying goodbye to the war within. You are returning home, to flow, to peace, to the quiet rhythm of divine harmony that has always waited for your attention. There is a moment, it comes quietly, like dawn through a veil, when you no longer seek proof. You no longer chase miracles or explanations. You simply know. You feel it not in your thoughts, but in the pulse beneath your skin, in the calm that fills your chest. You sense that something vast and ancient has awakened within you. The mind becomes silent, the heart expands, and what once felt separate begins to merge. Faith, science, and energy moving together as one living truth. This is the awakening the monks called the union of waters. They described it as the moment the river realizes it is the ocean. The individual current, the I, dissolves into the great flow of existence, no longer fighting, no longer resisting. In that surrender, something extraordinary happens. Healing becomes effortless. The body and the divine begin to move as one organism. The ancients always hinted that the body was not merely biological, but luminous, an instrument through which the soul experiences itself in matter. Within each cell, they said, is a spark of living light, a small fragment of the sun that first breathed life into the waters of creation. And that spark responds not to fear, not to chemistry, but to consciousness. When you align that consciousness, when you bring gratitude, peace, and presence into the act of drinking, breathing, and being, those sparks begin to awaken. They resonate. They form patterns of light that the ancient mystics could see in meditation, geometric shapes glowing around the heart, expanding through the body like constellations being born. Today, we might call this electromagnetic coherence, measurable by modern instruments, but the experience itself defies measurement. It feels like being rewoven into the fabric of the universe. In this state, the heart is no longer an organ. It is a sun. It radiates coherence outward, harmonizing every cell, every molecule of water within. The blood flows as music, guided by rhythm rather than resistance. And the pressure that once defined your days, that silent tension you carried in the background of every thought, begins to dissolve, not because you forced it away, but because you remembered it was never yours to carry. Science, in its language of observation, is beginning to confirm what faith has always whispered, that the body is an electrical symphony. The heart emits the most powerful electromagnetic field of any organ, a field measurable several feet beyond the skin. When you feel love, compassion, or gratitude, that field becomes ordered, synchronized, radiant. When you feel fear or anger, it becomes chaotic. The ancients didn't need machines to know this. They felt it. They lived by it. They understood that peace within creates peace without. The awakening, then, is the merging of perception, to see that what we once called spiritual and what we now call scientific are reflections of the same law. Both are descriptions of flow, energy seeking harmony. Whether you call it vibration or prayer, frequency or faith, the essence remains unchanged. Life heals through coherence. In one monastery scroll, the elder wrote, "When the heart's song and the universe's hum are one, there is no illness." He meant that dis-ease, the opposite of ease, is simply dissonance, a note played out of tune with the cosmic symphony. And when you return to tune, the music of life plays again through you. The river flows, the sun glows, and the body remembers the rhythm of eternity. As you continue the morning ritual, the changes deepen beyond the physical. The water becomes less a drink and more a mirror. Each morning, when light strikes its surface, you see reflected not just your face, but your soul, the one that has traveled through lifetimes of forgetting and remembering. You realize that the same force that shapes galaxies flows in the quiet movement of your hand as you lift the cup. You are both the vessel and the water, both the seeker and the source. In this realization, gratitude becomes your natural state. You begin to thank everything, not out of obligation, but because gratitude has become your way of breathing. You thank the light for returning, the body for serving, the water for remembering. You even thank the pressures of your past, those moments of struggle that once seemed like punishment, for they were simply teachers guiding you back to flow. The awakening brings a new kind of vision. You start to see that all pressure, whether in the veins or in the soul, comes from resistance to love. Every contraction in the body mirrors a contraction in consciousness, a place where love was withheld or forgiveness delayed. And as you release these blockages, as you soften your thoughts, your blood follows suit. Your body learns again what the monks always knew, that love is the natural state of every molecule. Science may call it nitric oxide release, vagal tone, or parasympathetic dominance. The mystics call it grace. Both speak of the same phenomenon of the body entering harmony with the field of life. Once awakened, you begin to notice synchronicities, moments of effortless alignment between your inner state and the outer world. The days unfold with a sense of orchestration. You think of someone, and they appear. You speak a need, and the solution arrives without struggle. It is as if the universe, now resonating with your coherence, rearranges itself to support your flow. The elders said, "When you become water, the world becomes your river." This is not magic, it is resonance. The heart's coherent field influences everything within its reach, people, plants, even the structure of the water you drink. And because you are mostly water, your coherence becomes a living medicine, not only for yourself but for all life around you. When you drink now, it is no longer ritual. It is communion. You no longer bless the water. You recognize that the water has always been blessing you. Every drop carries the memory of stars, the echo of rain that once fell on sacred lands. You feel connected to all who have ever lived, all who have ever prayed over water, all who have ever sought peace through flow. In this state, even the concept of healing transforms. Healing is no longer fixing what is broken, but revealing what was always whole. You see that the heart was never diseased, only unheard. The body was never your enemy, only your mirror. And the divine was never absent, only quiet. The monks described this realization as the soft lightning of the soul. It was the illumination that followed surrender. Once a novice asked the abbot how he would know he had awakened. The abbot smiled and replied, "When the sound of your pulse becomes the sound of prayer." The moment arrives, perhaps unexpectedly, when you place your hand upon your chest and feel the rhythm within as sacred. You no longer rush to silence it with distraction. You listen. Each beat feels like the ocean's tide, constant, eternal. You realize that the heart has always been speaking the language of God. It was your mind that had forgotten how to hear. In awakening, every action becomes sacred. The way you drink, the way you breathe, the way you walk through a room, all of it becomes ceremony. You begin to understand why the monks moved slowly, why they spoke gently, why they laughed softly. They lived as if God were always listening, because God was not outside them. God was in every atom, in every vibration, in every quiet heartbeat. Modern language might call this mindfulness, but that word feels too small. It is not merely awareness, it is devotion. Every sip of water becomes a prayer, every exhale a hymn, every sunrise a resurrection. And with each passing day, the boundaries between you and the world blur further. The pressure in your body, once a symbol of separation, becomes a distant memory. You find that peace does not need to be created. It was always there beneath the noise. You simply learn to tune into it. This is the great revelation of awakening, that the same energy which holds planets in orbit also holds your blood in balance. The same intelligence that directs the growth of forests directs the healing of your heart. You were never alone in your struggle. You were simply unaware of the river carrying you. To awaken is to see through the illusion of control. The monks said that control is the final wall between man and God. As long as you believe you must force life to obey, you live in tension. But when you trust, when you release, when you let the river carry you, you enter the effortless rhythm of divine order. And in that rhythm, the concept of high blood pressure loses meaning. For what is high or low when one is in flow? The body adjusts itself, guided by the intelligence that once turned chaos into stars. The abbot once wrote, "When the heart no longer fights, the heavens rejoice." This is not poetry, it is truth. The heavens within you, the electromagnetic constellations of your cells, respond with joy when you stop fighting your nature. You were designed for peace. You were born to flow. As the awakening deepens, a quiet smile begins to dwell upon your lips, not from joy, but from recognition. You no longer seek healing because you have become it. You no longer look for the divine because you live as its expression. The morning drink is now a reminder, a symbol of the unity you carry everywhere. The monk's final teaching was written in the simplest words: to drink is to remember is to heal is to awaken. You begin to see that this ritual is not about lowering something, but about rising into awareness, into connection, into the luminous truth that faith and science are not two languages, but two dialects of the same eternal intelligence. Water carries energy. Energy carries information. Information carries consciousness. And consciousness, when purified by love, carries life. Drink this in the morning, and you no longer say goodbye to high blood pressure. You say goodbye to separation. You say hello to unity. You say hello to peace. And now, the journey returns to stillness, the same stillness from which it began. You stand once again at dawn, the sky painted in colors too ancient for names. The cup rests in your hands, familiar now, no longer a vessel of mystery, but of remembrance. The water within it trembles gently, reflecting the first breath of light. You realize you are not beginning a ritual. You are continuing one that has never ended. The silence around you is not empty. It hums, it breathes, it carries the pulse of the earth itself. You close your eyes, and for the first time, you hear what silence has been trying to tell you all along. That peace was never something to find. It was something to listen to. You lift the cup slowly. You can feel the story it carries, the mornings, the prayers, the unspoken hopes of every hand that has ever touched water with reverence. You feel your ancestors within it, their hearts beating softly beneath your skin. You remember the monks, the elders, the healers, those who whispered their love into water long before science gave words to their knowing. You are part of that lineage now. You are the continuation of their song. When the water touches your lips, it is not just hydration. It is communion. You taste clarity. You taste sunlight. You taste the memory of rivers that once ran beneath temples and mountains. You taste the divine itself, alive in motion. And in that taste, you understand. The world heals through your attention. The body heals through your gratitude. The heart heals through your willingness to love again. This is the reflection, the sacred pause that follows awakening, not the end of the journey but its fulfillment. The monks taught that reflection is the mirror of eternity. It is where the seen meets the unseen, where the self dissolves into the sacred current. They would often sit for hours after their morning ritual, eyes half open, faces serene, letting their awareness dissolve into the rhythm of the day. They called it drinking the silence. To them, silence was the final medicine, the sound of the soul returning home. As you sit, your breath slows. The heart beats softly, like a drum echoing through the body's cathedral. You begin to feel your own flow merging with that of the earth. The pressure that once marked your days feels like a distant dream, a story told by someone you used to be. What remains is balance, stillness, grace. You realize now that water was never the healer. It was the messenger. The healer was always within you. The ritual simply taught you how to listen to your own sacred flow. Gratitude fills you effortlessly. You think of the body, not as fragile flesh, but as a living temple of intelligence. Each cell, each drop of blood, each breath, all performing their ancient choreography, serving the mystery of life. You whisper thank you, not as a word, but as a vibration from the heart. The moment you do, the field around you expands. The air feels thicker, charged with light. You are inside the prayer you once spoke. The mind tries to name it, but there are no words, only feeling, only flow. In that flow, forgiveness arises naturally. You forgive your body for the pain it once carried, for the tension it once held. You forgive your mind for the fear it believed was protection. You forgive yourself for forgetting that you were never separate from peace. Forgiveness, gratitude, and silence, these three are the sacred trinity of reflection. They restore what was always whole. They are the rivers through which the divine continues to speak. As you breathe, you remember the elder's final teaching. Healing is not the absence of pressure, it is the art of flowing with it. You understand now, life will continue to move. There will be storms, changes, demands, but within you the river will remain calm. The world may rise in chaos, but the heart will know peace, for it has returned to rhythm. You think of the billions of hearts beating across the planet at this very moment, each one a drum echoing the same cosmic pulse. The realization humbles you. You are not one drop in the ocean, you are the ocean remembering itself through one drop. The reflection deepens. You begin to sense something larger than healing and something eternal. The same intelligence that whispered to the monks, that breathed through the elders, that spoke through sunlight and salt and lemon, now speaks through you. It does not use language, it uses resonance. It says, flow. You open your eyes, the world feels new, the air glows with awareness. Even the smallest details, the glint of light on a leaf, the sound of distant birds, shimmer with significance. The ordinary has become sacred. The sacred has become ordinary. This is what it means to live in reflection, to see divinity not in temples or rituals, but in moments. And so the ritual continues not in monasteries or mountains, but in kitchens, gardens, and quiet hearts around the world. The cup of water beside your bed becomes a relic of connection. The first sip of morning becomes a ceremony. You no longer need to search for miracles. You are living one. To those who still suffer under the weight of their own storms, your presence becomes silent medicine. You do not need to preach, teach, or convince. Your calm becomes your offering. Your peace becomes your prayer. In reflection, you understand that healing was never a destination. It was a remembering of the original harmony, the music of life playing through form. The same music that turns water into medicine, light into energy, silence into revelation. The day moves gently now. There is no rush, only rhythm. You carry the awareness of flow through every action, through every conversation, every pause, every breath. And each night, before sleep, when the world falls quiet again, you whisper your gratitude into the unseen. You thank the waters within and around you. You thank the divine intelligence that flows through every atom, guiding you always toward peace. And when morning comes, you rise not as a seeker, but as one who remembers. You lift your cup once more, and as light pours through it, you smile, because you know that this simple act, this union of faith, science, and gratitude, is not small. It is cosmic. It is creation itself, repeating the miracle through you. You drink, the water flows, the heart listens, the silence speaks. And somewhere, unseen but certain, the universe smiles, for you have become the flow.